I decided that I would discuss the muscular system or the organization of muscle tissues lab. For me, it's very important as an athlete. Our muscles are extremely important when it comes to our performance. When conducting labs such as this one, it's really unique when we use the website that we are provided with. The hands-on lab platform is amazing. It allows you to go through all of your labs. First, you have like a pre-test that tests your knowledge on whatever system that we're working on that week. Um, from that point, you move on to the actual experiment where it gives you a list of materials that you need from the digital aspect to hands-on. So with this one in particular, we needed the skeleton model that was provided to us within our lab kit, which is pretty unique. It's pretty cool. And it's awesome. It gives us a full replica of the human skeletal system, which is nice, and it allows us to play with it a little bit, to explore the muscles, explore different joint parts, and overall just get a better view of what we're working on and what we're trying to understand when it comes to certain systems such as the muscular system. There are 3 different types of muscle in the body: cardiac, skeletal, and smooth. The unique thing about cardiac muscle is that it can only be found in the heart, which in the sense was why it's called cardiac muscle. It also has branching fibers. Moving on to the skeletal muscle, it has the longest fiber length, which is actually pretty unique and cool when you think about it. Skeletal muscle positions and moves bony structures of the body, like the leg, the upper limbs, and the lower limbs. Lastly, skeletal muscle in its entirety consists of multinucleated cells. Now, moving on to smooth muscle, you can find it mostly in the walls of an organ or vessels. It's spindle shaped and it has no striations. One of the sections that I most enjoyed while doing this lab was the microscopic examination of each muscle type. Going deep into it, the lab platform allows us to explore each muscle type through a digital microscope. Using this digital microscope, I had the opportunity to really evaluate and observe cardiac muscle in the longitudinal section, skeletal muscle in the cross section, smooth muscle, and also skeletal muscle in its longitudinal section as well. During this experiment, there was a section where I had to input the magnification and comments in regards to the 4 slides of different types of muscle. The first slide of the skeletal muscle at the longitudinal section, I had it at 400 magnification, which I found it easier to identify the muscle fibers in that section, but also the striation appeared a bit blurry in that section. For the skeletal muscle in the cross section, I also had it at 400 magnification, so I could easily identify the flattened muscle cell nuclei and also the striation. Cardiac muscle in the longitudinal section at 400 magnification as well, I could easily see the individual cardiac cells within this section, which was amazing. Lastly, the smooth muscle within the longitudinal section at 400 magnification at the highest power, I could easily identify the branching networks of the smooth muscle cells. Moving along with the experiment, there was a part 2 of the experiment that was actually the most exciting part, having the opportunity to use the skeletal model. This for me was very, very interesting, and just the type of learner I am, kinesthetic, being able to have some sort of hands-on portion of it was amazing. When beginning this experiment, there were a few steps that we had to take in order to get on the right steps of completing the experiment in its entirety. First, we had to gather materials, whether that was a pencil, paper, a digital camera, obviously a microscope, but we used the online platform, some rubber bands, and of course the skeletal model. The second step was to tie the rubber bands to the sections of the skeletal model as explained in the experiment. In this way, we're able to see or discuss and really and truly explain abduction and flexion. After completing this experiment, you're able to truly discuss the effects of the rubber bands and the range of motion of the joints. Not only that, the strength of each joint and the movements of abduction and flexion. One cool thing that I realized during this experiment using these rubber bands, when you added more rubber bands to the skeletal model, it allowed a stricter range of motion. The additional rubber bands made it much more challenging to move the skeleton in different directions. Conducting this part of the experiment, we had to upload a few images. The first image was the pectoralis major. This image was pretty clear, pretty nice, and well presented once you've completed the experiment. The second image that we had to capture was the bicep bronchi. This was extremely ordinary and honestly one of the best parts of it. The bicep bronchi aids in abduction when the arm is rotated, as well as forward flexion of the shoulder joint. Its joints also promote stabilization to the shoulder with heavy weight. As I mentioned before as well, cardiac muscle can only be found in the heart, which is also important because blood pumps through the body based on this muscle. The main characteristic of cardiac muscle is that they are involuntary, striated, branched, and single nucleated. The main characteristics of muscle cells is that they are voluntary, striated, and not branched, also multinucleated. Skeletal muscle is the only muscle tissue that is completely under control of the cerebral cortex. It is so important because a muscle type like this allows movement, and it's something that you need in order to move. Lastly, it brings me to the biblical discussion of the entire piece. For me personally, I feel like the muscles overall is a beautiful thing, something in which was constructed and made with a purpose. And I feel like God has a purpose for everything that he places on this earth. And that includes the human body, us as people, the systems within us, and the muscles that we use on a daily basis. The Creator pretty much made us in his image and allows us to walk this earth with functions and abilities that is unbelievable, and it's very extraordinary. And honestly, there's no other way to explain what we have and why we have it besides the fact that he created us with a purpose. And as we move along our journey to pretty much pinpoint each thing in our body, their job, their role, there's nothing that can truly explain it in depth as much as the Creator himself and his design, purpose, and work within us.